Morning and welcome to the Above Ground Leadership Podcast, episode 4. If this is your first time to the channel, please subscribe so you don't miss any of the content when it's posted. Thank y'all. Thank y'all so much for all your comments and your advice as to continue to grow this show. Anytime you want to hear a topic, please again send me a message or just leave it in the comments of the videos. Because this thing is really picking up. We had our first guest on the show last week, Lieutenant Colonel Corey Cousins. Thanks, Corey, for coming on. Really appreciate you. You really brought some value to the show and kind of gave a direction that show that it's going to go. This week's episode is going to be on about mentorship. All right, mentorship. The MPM. All right, you'll hear me talk about the MPM, which is your mentor, your peer, and your mentee. All right, so I'm gonna read off this convo kicker and we'll get right into it. I believe every leader should have 3 people in their lives. These 3 people should be a mentor, a peer, and lastly, a mentee. Each one of these plays a significant role in our development and growth personally and professionally. Mentorship can provide numerous benefits for mentors and their mentees. Developing these relationships can help both of you learn new things, build your network, and grow as leaders. Understanding these benefits will help you decide whether you find a mentor or become one. All right, MPM. MPM, man, is something that honestly, I didn't come up with the acronym MPM, but I was on the show and someone said, man, they say, well, they referred to it as MPM. All right, I just used to call it mentor, peer, and mentee. All right, but it's really important. All right, I believe it's really important. It plays an important role because it allows you, mentorship is important because it allows you to give back to the future, right? And that's what the youth are, to the future. So as a mentor, a mentor acts in the best interest of the mentee. All right, they provide expertise to them, whether it's professional, personal. They give them honest feedback from an experienced vantage point. All right, so as a mentor, your mentor should be someone that you see successful. When I say see successful, it's not a monetary thing. It could be a family life. It could be in a career field, but just someone that you see successful. Also, it should be someone that you honestly can learn from, that you got to be willing to listen. All right, because you can't listen just talking. Like old saying say, if you're doing all the talking, you never can learn. So it needs to be someone that you can learn from. You don't have to see them daily or touch them daily or talk to them daily. You can learn from afar. Like 2 people come in mind when I think about mentors, like from afar, that didn't know. One knows now, but that didn't know. Like Colin Powell, for example. Colin Powell, I never met him personally, right? But he was a mentor to me. He was a mentor to me. I just saw him as a successful leader, so I followed him. I researched him, I studied him, and that kind of molded my leadership career. All right, behind Colin Powell, and secondly was Jimmy Polk. Jimmy, good friend of mine. I think I met Jimmy in 2000. He was the first his barbershop was the first barbershop I worked in. So I went into his shop and just learned. Our friendship grew, tremendously. I just thought he was successful. He was a successful warrant officer. He had his own barbershop, had a beautiful family with his wife Lisa and his kids. I just like, man, to me that was success, right? And so I mirrored it. I just mirrored it. As I kind of, as a young man, that was something that I saw successful. So I kind of mimicked that and went on. Your mentor can serve as your advisor, right? For the ones that you can talk to daily or talk to whenever you can reach out to via calls or text messages or emails, but they can be your advisor. But for someone to be your advisor, you have to be able to listen. Okay, you got to be willing to listen. Lastly, they should be someone in a field in the field that you desire to grow in, right? And so that means you might have multiple mentors. You might have a leadership mentor. You might have a mentor in your field, but it's very important that you seek out, seek out a mentor. Okay. Next is a peer. Now, your peer mentor is probably, all of them are important, right? But your peer mentor is probably the most important. All right. Your peer mentor is unique. They're in a unique position because they know almost exactly what you're going through, because they're most likely going through with you, being your peer, or they just went through it. Okay. This role is key. All right. This role is key. Your peer mentor needs to be that no BS person in your life. All right. When I say no BS person, I'm talking about someone who can check you. Someone who can check you when you're out of line, and they can steer you back in the right direction. Because there's nothing like having a friend around who will check you. There's nothing like having someone to say, hey, you said you was going to do this, but you're not doing anything, of that such. You don't need a bunch of yes men and yes women around, right? Because they'll laugh, and and again, it's good to have fun friends, and I'm not saying don't, but you got to have someone who will say, "Nah, man, that's not the way. Ray, you out of line. You need to step back. Look at what you're doing, right? Or don't send that email, all right? Or don't make that phone call, right? You really need to have those people in your life, because they'll keep you at level, right? And then your peer mentor needs to be, again, they need to be someone in or on the same level as you. All right, that's important, because that also help ensure that they have that same empathy. They really understand from your perspective, right? From your vantage point, because often when you talk to a mentor or another, or a leader, right? They don't really understand, because they don't see your perspective, right? And your perspective is based on your position, right? So the man on top of the valley when it's raining, the man on top of the mountain when it's raining, he's just looking at the water going to the bottom, thinking it's beautiful. The man on the bottom of the valley with the raining, like he's dealing with flooding. So the rain, again, your perspective is based on your position. All right. Next, there need to be someone that you trust and that you'll listen to, right? Because when they provide you that feedback, whether it's positive, right, or negative, right, but it's constructive either way, you need to be able to listen to them. All right. Next, you need to be somebody that'll provide you honest feedback and not be worried about your relationship, right? And I won't say not worried about your feelings, because they worry about your feelings. They're your friends, or if y'all have if they truly close to you, truly genuine, they care about your feelings, but they value your well-being over your feelings. They know that your feelings will be okay ultimately. All right, so you need to have somebody who will provide that honest feedback, and that's really not worried, about your relationship. And lastly, you need to be this person to someone as well. All right, you need to be that peer, and don't worry about, and one of the biggest things that hurt us as we in our journey to success is sometimes we find ourselves too worried about just us, right? Share the knowledge. Look out to help somebody else. Look, someone else's gain isn't your loss, right? You're not competing. Like, you got to realize, again, as we, talked about earlier, karma, man, as you give, it'll come back to you. It'll come back to you. So be that person for someone else. All right. Next is your mentee. All right. So your mentee is someone, here's the key to your mentee. Your mentee, you don't get to pick them. You don't get to pick your mentee. Your mentee often picks you. And as I stated earlier, under mentor, they'll pick you and you won't even know. Jimmy didn't know. Jimmy didn't find out until I was on the podcast, and he called me and said, Ray, I did not know that, right? But it's vital that you understand that you don't get to pick them, because what happens is we often say, well, I'm gonna take this person and I'm gonna put them under my wing and I'm gonna mentor them and lead them. But that doesn't really work if they're not sold on you, right? You try to force yourself to be their mentor, but if they're not really buying into it, that relationship never grows, right? And you need, that relationship to grow for it to thrive. All right. Mentees are very important to a leader's growth and development, right? Because it's like a cycle, right? It's like a cycle. As you're pouring into them and you troubleshooting with them, you're learning things about yourself. You're learning things. One thing about mentees, they're usually younger, right? And I'll just use social media and the technology, of today. The mentee probably is more skilled and in tune with those things than an older mentor. So while that mentor is, really mentoring the mentee, but they are also learning from them as well. So, that's very important. You have to make sure your audio and video matches. I know we talk about that, but listen, that's important. You got to be able to, walk the walk and talk the talk. All right, because your mentee is more likely to do what you do than less than do what you say. All right, they're gonna see what you're doing and follow it. And the other part to that, again, you don't know who's your mentee. They might tell you, they might not, right? But because you never know who's watching. Somebody's watching. Somebody's always watching. All right. Next, it gives you an opportunity to give back. And there's nothing like giving back. Because I think that's like one of the reasons of starting this podcast is just the opportunity to try to give a platform to leaders to give back, right? So with your mentee, you give them as you pour into them, you pour into yourself, right? It's nothing like coaching, teaching, and mentoring a young person and seeing them grow, and then them turn around and doing the same thing. All right. Lastly, you build your tree. You build your tree. Your tree is your network, because as you pour into these mentees and you watch them, they turn around and they become coaches, or they become leaders. Again, that's a great feeling. That's a great feeling. So again, your MPM, your mentor, your peer, and your mentee. So that will conclude this show. Thank you. Just want to tell you, thank everyone for tuning in again. Please continue to send in your comments, positive or negative. Just let me know how it goes. Tune in. Any comments, any topics that you want to hear, put into the comment section. Thanks again for tuning in. Have a great day. Be great today.